So the title of this session, I didn't name it, but I inherited it, and I think it's interesting, is pay-per-click versus retargeting. Can't they coexist? Like, what's that mean? What's the relationship between the two? Are they, is it either or like where do they sit next relative to one another? Any thoughts about that?
I think, I didn't really understand the topic name when I first read it too. I was kind of confused because I'm like, you can run campaigns on Facebook that are retargeting, that have a click conversion objective. But I think more or less when I think of the topic of retargeting, I think it's more or less when you're thinking of Facebook ads, because that's what I kind of focus on, is building a custom ad journey for each user who comes into your funnel. So we always like to think there's top of funnel, there's mid funnel, there's bottom of funnel. So you want to have, if you're running direct response on Facebook, you want to have a user come into your funnel from a non-sales focused ad unit. So maybe like a video ad or some type of really interesting article about your service. And then you could remarket to that user. If they watch a video or if they engage with your ad, then you can remarket another ad to that user. So in essence, I like to think of Facebook as more or less a CRM tool and less a marketing platform, because you could usually build a custom ad journey for each user who comes into who sees one of your ads.
In that example, does Facebook have its own remarketing pixel, and that capability exists inside that platform?
Yeah, Facebook has a universal audience pixel, so you only have to place one pixel on your website, and then you're able to remarket to users if they convert. I mean, they have all your data in one centralized place, so you could go to bed at night knowing that Facebook knows every single element of your business.
Any other thoughts on pay-per-click versus retargeting?
I'll let the SEM guy go.
Oh, sure. No. So yeah, even to give some background, the title is misleading because PPC can be retargeting. So in AdWords, for instance, you can do retargeting campaigns where you're paying per click. And usually it's not a question of versus, you're using both of them, both techniques. So you've got your PPC campaigns to attract new customers, and then you've got your retargeting campaigns to re-engage the ones that have already bought or that have interest in buying. And same when it comes to video too. If we've got some campaigns that are that top of funnel, like Steve just mentioned, that are trying to raise awareness for people that don't know about the movie release, the TV show release, or the new product. And then you've got campaigns that you're retargeting with a different message to try to get them to tune in at a certain date or to make a purchase, go into store, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think we're talking about integration, and I think there has to be kind of a seamless journey from I've never heard of you to I want to interact with your brand and beyond that. And I think search has been a great tool for smaller businesses, and I mean all businesses, of course, but like smaller businesses could enter without needing $100,000 of TV spend. They could start finding audiences right away, and that's been going on for 15 years now. But I do come across a lot of smaller companies that are still using that as their only tactic. And it's, if this is a customer journey, search is like a line on the journey, right? So, that's why we have to also think about retargeting. But what are you retargeting with? I mean, yes, you can do search retargeting, but there can also be visual retargeting, right? You can literally retarget with television ads. Now, how do you do that? Because we're talking about non-linear TV versus linear TV. You can actually go through Roku and other devices like that and have kind of a one-to-one addressability once you have that cookie, And by the way, Facebook does have its own cookie, but what happens is you're stuck on Facebook, right? So you need to bring that person to your website and tag them with another pixel so you can take them somewhere else and find them somewhere else online as well. That's going to be really important.
So it's gotten a lot more sophisticated in recent years. That is for sure. Rachel, do you have a thought to add to that?
I mean, the only thing I would say is PPC is a cost model, retargeting is a tactic. So retargeting can also be run on a CPM, not on a cost per click. It's it's what works best for your brand. If you're layering on the best smart data to retarget, you might be more efficient doing that on a CPM because you're not playing for the click.
Yeah.
And so it's really testing out different platforms, different models that work. Whereas CPC just means cost per click. So yeah, people think, oh, that's direct response. That's great because I'm only paying if someone clicks on my ad. But may not be the best cost model for every campaign. I have
an e-commerce client that feels like she got burned in remarketing by remarketing firms, and now it's like I'll test retargeting, but it has to be on the last click, CPC only, and which Google you mentioned can do that. But
I think that's an interesting topic. attribution window. A lot of people I work with have no clue what an attribution window is, and that's like the can of worms of online marketing. It's like Facebook will be like, yeah, well, 30-day view through, 28-day click, and these are all like synonyms for like people not knowing what they're getting themselves into. So if you ever do remarketing, it's really important to understand what attribution window or what attribution credit you're giving that conversion. So for instance, if you have a multi-channel approach, you got TV running, you got Google ads running, you have Facebook, you have DSPs, you have influencers, you have all these different channels running at once. Well, maybe you want to give Facebook a lower attribution window because you have all these other channels bringing users to your website. Whereas if Facebook is like your 9/10 of your marketing and you're spending $1 million a month on Facebook, maybe you want to give Facebook a longer attribution window. You say like, now 28-day view is okay, or 28-day click is okay. If a user clicks on my ad and converts within 28 days, I'm going to give credit to that conversion back to Facebook. But what's really important is just to understand, how attribution works, because then you could optimize your campaigns based around an attribution window.
So is that to say that they would get the credit and get paid for it, or you already paid for it because you bought the click, right? So like how do you give credit to other different media partners in the chain and have them be accounted for?
You don't really give credit to other partners in the chain, but what you do is you optimize your campaigns around a specific attribution window. So for instance, if you're optimizing around a 1-day click conversion window in Facebook, well, if you're getting X CPA off a 1-day click window, then you're going to obviously spend more money on Facebook if you're getting a good CPA on that 1-day window. Whereas if you see like this attribution window is getting a really shitty CPA, excuse my French, then you would obviously lower your ad budgets for that specific CPA.
Right.
You also have to look at the uniqueness of those customers, though, because first of all, I hope nobody is still working off of only a last click attribution model. That's so 5 years ago, and you're probably double paying for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You're probably also discounting some vendors that are doing really well for your campaign, but are maybe not always the last one in, and sometimes there's some tricks that can be pulled to become the last click. So be careful for that. I would recommend using some type of media mix model, some type of weighted media mix model, which means that you can look at all of the touch points on the way to that conversion and how many of the partners that drove those touch points were actually unique versus duplicated by 5 other partners that were also doing some type of retargeting or
And is managing that through tools like a Convertro or like multi-touch, or is it manual? How do you actually in practice manage that in the trenches?
I mean, you would use some type of advanced attribution tool. Obviously, some of them like a Convertro is going to be probably a more costly one to go with, but there are definitely options out there, and there are many agencies are using these tools too. So if you're using an agency, make sure that you're ask how that your conversions are getting measured and what their attribution model is, because the last click is, I wouldn't recommend it.
Alan, you had a thought?
No, I mean, I was just saying, I think you have to move more towards a linear model. Otherwise, you're basically missing out on these other sources. Retargeting you can't do a retargeting strategy only. Newsflash. I mean, unless you have amazing organic flow that's targeted, a lot of times SEO it's all over the place, and it's like a house built on sand. You don't really know what you're getting. So you need to have some kind of paid media on top, pushing very targeted people into your funnel so that the retargeting actually,
That's a great point. I mean, retargeting is people that have already been to your site after all. You've paid for them. You know who they are in theory. So what's a good rule of thumb in terms of the amount of budget that should be spent on retargeting versus other tactics?
$1 million.
No. I mean, if remarketing should convert a lot better than your prospecting campaigns. For those who don't know, prospecting campaigns are driving new users into your funnel. So if remarketing is converting, remember you have a finite amount of users you can remarket to. So I always like to spend as much money as humanly possible with keeping the current conversion rate on remarketing, and hopefully that's more than less. So, as many users as I have in my remarketing bucket, I'm trying to spend as much as possible while at the same time keeping a CPA.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. You can't really look at it at the outset and be like, okay, 50% is going to go to remarketing, 50% to prospecting. It's going to be like retargeting usually ends up converting better if you're doing it properly. You're going to find people that are already engaged or people that have been to the site, so they already have some awareness, so they're deeper down into the funnel. But that could end up being 50% of your budget. It could be more, but it's more about like how big, spend as much as you can in your different tactics that are working the best if it's getting you the ROI, and then everything else you're going to spend towards that prospecting and trying to get new clients.
And then we're talking about one dimension. Let's take it a couple layers, like retargeting with what? If you use an automated platform like Adderall, like some small businesses do, they don't even, their frequency rate cap, there's no cap on it. So they're pounding whoever 80 times or whatever over a course of, I don't know, weeks or months with your ad. And that can be really irritating unless you have a bunch of different ads and they're really focused. So it's like, what are we really talking about? So even that has to be mapped out and understood. It's not something you want to put on autopilot.
Yeah, I mean, the reputation of remarketing, of course, is that banners follow you around the web. And I mean, the ability to have a kind of order complete pixel existed a long time ago. I mean, have we figured that out yet? Is that something that you guys use in practice?
You mean like a remove pixel?
A remove
absolutely,
pixel, yeah.
Absolutely,
You could do, so we do audience exclusions on Facebook. So literally, if you bought a product from one of our campaigns before, we're going to exclude that specific audience from a segment. Whether if your remarketing could mean I visited your website versus, I bought your product versus, I've watched the video on Facebook. Right. So, I think that you really have to start thinking of how do you segment your remarketing list to really get more efficiency out of them.
Yeah, so whenever I tell people what I do, they have that same comment, you're the annoying ads that follow me around, but when you see the annoying ads, like see the same thing and you've already purchased it from Amazon and it's still following you, that's just a media buyer marketer that hasn't done it well yet. So yeah, you have to set it up, and it's a lot more challenging to set it up well so that you make sure you have a bucket if you're going to do sequential targeting, for instance, and show somebody an ad, the first two ads, and here's a third one in a sequence, because you have to then exclude certain ad, and you've got all these different buckets, and your campaign lists end up going exponential. So to do it well, the ads should be serving something that somebody wants to see, and they're not annoyed by it, and they click on it, and they might not even know that it's an ad because it's giving them what they want.
Let's keep peeling back that part of the onion, because in the like Alan was saying, other dimensions, you're kind of reminding me of sequential messaging or dynamic retargeting. Sure. You want to talk a little bit about best practices or things you guys have seen in kind of really targeting the display creative according to what somebody's behavior has been in the past?
Sure. Yeah, so for me, since we're doing a lot of video advertising across YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, we're working with a lot of the entertainment industry, so a lot of TV shows and movies. And one of the most successful strategies for YouTube we've seen is, so you don't want to hit somebody with the same trailer over and over again for an upcoming movie or a new TV launch. So what we do is start off perhaps 2 months in advance with the long form trailer. And as we get closer, we retarget with a 15-second ad unit or the 5-second bumper, just to re-engage and to tell somebody to tune in at a certain date. And we start to implement those a week out, and then the week of, and then the day of. So that's been most effective.
Steve?
So what we like to do on Facebook is we'll run like a video, like something interesting, like a really interesting video, top of funnel. We'll exclude all of our current remarketing audience, all of our WCAs, website custom audiences, email remarketing audiences. Then we'll remarket to all the people who watched the video with a specific ad, just information about the product, an advertorial, something content based. Then down funnel, after they've hit our, watched our video, they've hit our second ad unit, then the third bottom of funnel will be our CTA ad, which is hardcore call to action, buy now, scarcity elements, discount codes, et cetera. And we've seen that when people have seen 4 or 5 ad impressions of your product and they showed purchase intent, they're much more likely to purchase at a very low cost per action.
Yeah, and to play off the purchase intent and not, kind of outside of sequential messaging or dynamic creative, another tactic that you can really see more success with your remarketing and be less annoying is looking at the level of purchase intent before serving that remarketing ad. So, for example, don't serve the remarketing ad to every single person who's been on your site. Serve the ad to people who have been on your site for a certain amount of time, looked at a certain level of price of products. So you have a whole range of products, but these are much more valuable than these. Maybe you want to spend your remarketing money on the people that spent 10 minutes looking at the pair of Manolo Blahniks instead of 5 seconds looking at the pair of Kmart shoes. It might make you more ROI.
I mean, what she's talking about is basically scoring that happen. Like a sales team would have a score on a lead. It's the same thing. You're doing a digital scoring. But again, that all has to come from your strategy. And a lot of times, unless you're kind of technical, a little bit technical with the ad ops, sometimes it's hard to know what to strategize about. So that's why I think it's important to actually kind of map out what all these parameters are and what they should be.
So everyone in here run Facebook ads? Raise your hand if you run a lot of Facebook ads. So Facebook released a new feature about 1.5 months, 2 months ago, where they're actually able to build remarketing lists based on time spent on your website, which is really interesting. So now you could tell Facebook, I want to build a remarketing list based on people who spent more than 10 seconds on my website. This is big because not only can you remarket differently with a different message to these people, but you could also build lookalike audiences based off the people who've spent the most time on your website. So now you're actually able to tell Facebook, here's all the people that spent a lot of time on my website. Now I want you to build an audience of people that look exactly like these people, which is just another really intelligent way to build audiences on Facebook using your current website custom audiences.
Let's keep talking about really cool tactics like that, because I'm learning so much here, and you guys are just really using these in creative ways. My friend and colleague Bailey from Gum Gum, who's here, was telling me about incorporating CRM data into their ad targeting, right? So based on when the salesperson said that they're planning to reach out to this customer again, that person might start seeing ads from us, that kind of cool stuff. Any other kind of creative techniques like that you use or have seen that are interesting?
So anyone here inside the content space, does any type of content arbitrage or any type of buying clicks at a very cheap rate to try and get on-site, monetization? So a little trick that we do for that is we'll actually export all the posts from, off Facebook, export all the posts, and then we re-upload every single post through XML back into Facebook, and you can put dollar budgets against each post. Then the one post that gets the lowest cost per click will turn everything off. It doesn't get a low cost per click. So it's a really quick, unique way to test every single post that you have, to your website without spending a lot of money.
Really smart. Thank you for sharing
Really
that.
smart and a little shady, but that's okay. It's what this industry is built on.
What about you guys? Anything else that we want to impart to that wise ways of using these tools?
I mean, to go along with the content theme too, and we both work a lot with YouTube now. A lot of people will use remarketing, not to remarket to a website, but to remarket viewers of their YouTube channel. Works a lot, like he was saying with the trailers. If you can drive an audience, you want to market your ads to people that or you're just distributing content as ads, and you want to remarket to people that are already fans of yours or of your brands, you can actually place that remarketing pixel from your YouTube channel audience versus from your website. It gives you just a different perspective to remarket and a different pool than people that have been cookied on your site.
Yeah, so I'd say lookalikes over the last couple of years, those have become a staple for any ad ops person. You find the audience that's working well and you want to find more. So you find your customer, somebody who's going to watch your show or whatever. So we built out some tools internally with the data science team. Facebook has a great lookalike model tool. What's really cool is if you start to place Facebook pixels in other places, like both on websites or on other platforms, you can start to get the audience insights, but also build lookalikes from Facebook's algorithms. They have so much data on all their users. Those tend to perform really well. But what I was going to say also in addition to that, one of our big techniques has been, aside from CRM data, we use third parties. So now I feel like I didn't know this, and I'm not sure that everybody else knows. With AdWords and with Facebook, they've now started to open up to allow third-party segment lists to come in. So BlueKai, Exalate, Axiom, all that kind of stuff. And so I'm doing that with AdWords and with Facebook Ad Manager, where we bring in those lists. So if you want to hit a certain demographic, a certain ethnicity, all that kind of stuff, we can use their data to have a preset list of people to target.
I don't know how long they've had it, but I know you can also upload your own email list to Facebook, right? And target and your
Google
users plus the lookalikes against that audience.
So we're talking about lookalike audiences, then there's act-alike audiences, which deals more with behavioral patterns. I did a challenging campaign for a regulated industry. It was a financial institute that was SEC regulated. So what's tricky about it is that their AdWords was not performing because everybody wanted this thing. It was like, yeah, but they were not qualified. They had to have like $1 million in the bank, so it didn't make sense to use AdWords. So I did more of a video campaign, and I was able to target very specifically using third-party, bank data, financial data, and then trying to find a more influential kind of customer to bring in, and suddenly it started to get to perform in a different way.
So a couple of things. Anyone here market a lot of video on Facebook for direct response? All right, not everyone.
Why not?
Hopefully very soon you guys will, once you see the results. But I still see a lot of video people who market videos without adding captions to the videos. I don't really understand that. Only like 30% of Facebook videos actually have sound to them. So one key advice, if I were to give advice to everyone here, I'd say add captions to your videos, because no one is going to listen to your videos because it's not on. So adding captions to your videos can actually increase your conversion rate probably by 70-80% of CTR, as well as overall conversion rate. Also, number two, you were talking about integrating your CRM with Facebook. So we've done some stuff with Marketo. Anyone here heard of Marketo? Worked with them?
Sure.
Yeah, so we integrated with Marketo for a couple of our clients, where they build custom audiences based on users who open up your email, who actually engage, who click over. So if you have a large email list, you could do this manually too, but you could actually take all the clickers and users who've clicked your email to this email, upload that into Facebook as a custom audience. You could take all the openers, people have opened your email, and upload that to Facebook as a custom audience. So let's say you want to have a unique value message to all the people who've clicked but haven't bought. Well, now you can run a specific Facebook ad just to those users. Or you have, the people who've opened who haven't clicked, you can run a specific ad just to those users.
We're talking about pay-per-click. We're talking about Facebook a lot. We're talking about some search. I actually did a campaign where we did TV, and that was driving users to the website. And so now you're talking about offline to online, and that gets kind of cool because it was a startup, and we were using big boy tools to scale them up, right? And so, and it was going to be a 1-month test, and it ended up performing for 18 months straight. Ran every day, 5 times a day, nonstop. And it was just a huge generating machine, and now they're at 100 million in revenue.
So what's the technical mechanism that made that work? If you can say, did you drop a pixel
Tony's trying to
from
figure
IPTV?
What's the tactic? What's the one thing? No, it's like it's a monster, but it's not that hard if I explain it strategically. It's really you are creating a TV campaign, and then you're driving people. It's direct response, right? But we did it a little more. We call it brand response, and the reason for that is, and I broke all the rules of direct response. And I came from brand TV commercials. I'm always like, why does people have to shout? We call it yell and sell. And it's like, why? And so I told the client, why can't we just have graphics instead of voiceover? And then they were like, cool. Thank God they were open. We did it in a much more stylish way. It was very elegant. And it worked really well. And the thing is we were doing attribution within a window of 10 minutes, and you could see that it was spiking up, and it was actually working. So, yeah. And these are different kinds of tools. These are third-party tools that you're using. I was using iSpot, for example, to do that.
Use the term brand response. I would love to talk a little bit about the stages of the marketing funnel. And a couple of you have touched on it, but from awareness through the classic funnel, attention, desire, down to that conversion. How do you think about those different stages of the funnel these days as it relates to these tactics we've been talking about? Could you talk about that a little bit? Anyone?
For me, for brand response, I really think it's really about branding first, and then the direct response kind of comes later. And branding is I've never heard of you. And so there's got to be something about the feel, the touch of your brand that makes people want to engage further, right? And once you get them down into your website, then I think the direct response takes more place. And obviously with retargeting and all that, you're really trying to drive that. But that's where you're trying to kick in the machinery, get your core offerings, your splintered offerings, your upsells, cross-sells, all that stuff happens more on the website. So once you're off the website, I really feel like it's a combination of 80% branding and 20% why don't you pay us a visit? It can't be always in your face, because there's already a lot of noise online. It's you don't want to be too pushy. But what I find, here's how I kind of separate it. I'm going to exaggerate. direct response can be kind of like in your face and even kind of cheesy, and it's just like the skeleton of like, this is what we want you to do, right? And branding's almost like it's a perfume ad, and it's like, wait, what do they want me to do? Like, it's just like a feeling, it's very emotional. So what you're really trying to do is combine the mind and the emotions together, fused like perfectly.
Yeah, well put, Steve.
First off, I don't know much about branding. I'm probably know the least here about branding. I get hired just to drive conversions, and I think we're pretty good at that area. But from what I learned about recently about branding and such online, I don't think there's a big difference between branding and direct response anymore. I think it's pretty much the same thing. It's all looking at data and understanding how people are responding to your advertisement. And a great example, if you have a site that you're marketing on Facebook, and then they Google that site and they get really bad reviews, or really something that they uncover that they're not very happy about, your ad on Facebook won't convert just because when they go on Google they see something negative. So I would say, like, in my opinion, branding's very important, but branding has to be articulated into the message of your direct response campaigns, and together I think there's a marriage.
Just to your point, I did have a client where he had an amazing funnel, and he literally was trying to like make it a nickel better per click, and it's like, dude, like, your funnel's perfect at the mid and bottom. You need to work on the top. And because that was outside of the scope of his comfort level, I think it was almost like he wanted to stay in the machinery. I'm like, your messaging's off. Like, it didn't look nice. It was like, I was trying to be nice. I was like, you need to work on the branding part. And he felt like, well, if I can just save a nickel, this will convert, and and it doesn't scale. That's the problem. It doesn't scale, a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a mindset. It's someone who's worked, probably what Steve's company just does all day long. ROI, can we get 6-to-1 instead of 5-to-1? And it's a mindset that when you're in that place, you're not thinking about the brand perception, and that, there's other things outside of that direct response piece in the very bottom of the funnel that could scale the bottom of the funnel for you down the line. So if you go and you do that branding, you put the money into a brand campaign, into awareness campaign, you drive the preference for you over your competitors, more people eventually are going to come into that retargeting pool. More people are going to be there for you to sell to, and you'll have a lot more data to work off of. So yeah, they do work together, but there are a lot of people who just have such a direct response feel, and especially when it's their company.
Oh, I think in the beginning, direct response is like the quick win, and it feels great, but it just kind of plateaus. And the biggest lever is going to be at the top, and it's going to be branding, and that's the part that sometimes they don't get to that lesson.
Well, that's a risk for like I have a client who's very DR focused, but they get found online very easily for the product that people are searching for. But now we're trying to break out, and how do you get seen and at the higher level of the funnel, and that's scary for a performance marketer to try to build a brand.
If you are running a brand campaign on Instagram or Facebook, just one key advice is to make sure you exclude all your custom audiences, and make sure number 2, to make sure that you're optimizing for impressions and less clicks and less conversions, because the way Facebook's algorithm works is it'll serve your ad to people most likely to do a specific action. So if you want to reach the most amount of people for your product, you always want to make sure that you're focused on impressions and not conversions.
So what I was going to say was, what's great is, so my first 8 years in the business was all DR, so like Steve stuff, and now I'm on the branding side, so most of our advertisers are all branding awareness, upper funnel. So when internet ads were getting started, we could measure everything, so it became like people wanted direct response. If I'm going to pay $1, I want to see what I get in return. So that whole branding kind of play wasn't as prevalent as we saw on like TV and other, old media. And now we're starting to see, especially with the video becoming so big, and I'm right at the cusp of where these TV buyers are now starting to dip their toe into online video ads. And we're able to measure it better now, the effectiveness of their ads, because we can run way more effective brand studies. So there's been a lot of development around Nielsen and ComScore in the last couple of years on our ability to track and create panels, or not even panels, but actually serve brand studies to people that have seen like the specific ad. So now we're starting to get in this better conversation of being able to track their TV buy and their online buy, and then track it all the way down the funnel to the purchase. So that's what's been really interesting. I'd say like one of the big technology uses that we have, especially when it comes to Facebook, is using that Atlas tag. That's been really useful for us. But they also have a new way to buy on Facebook for branding and awareness. Like they have a new objective. Yeah, so I don't know if you've played with that at all, but that's been a good way to make sure you keep separate from if you're doing direct response, but you want a branding awareness play. Now they're starting to get more into that, even on the buying side in the platforms themselves.
Yeah, we don't really use that a lot, but I hear it's cool.
And so I think a lot of that mindset happened because search was so great because the intent was there. We knew what they wanted. But the truth is that's like a small percentage of your addressable market, right? They know they want that. There's a whole other, like 80, 90% are like, I wasn't even thinking about a blue bike, but now I want one now that I saw the video. If I see a search ad for blue bike, that's not going to really entice me to want to get a blue bike. So, I mean, there's a time and place for it, but it has to be orchestrated.
It's like the SEM buyer. You can set up a brand campaign and bid on the brand terms and like get conversions for 5 cents all day. And you're like, oh, look, this is awesome. But you're not finding anybody new. So so search is really easy to measure. And you get that person that has that intent base. They have an ad unit on YouTube now called TrueView Discovery, which is in the YouTube search results. So those first 2 positions there, the thumbnail, performs really well because now you're in an intent base instead of a pre-roll TrueView buy where you're running in front of another video that somebody was ready to watch. Now you're waiting for somebody to do a search. So yeah, we see great results and it's great for performance-based campaigns. But I think it's funny. You really have to have these separate your buckets by the intent of what you want somebody to do, because you could bid on brand all day and it's going to perform and anybody can set that up. But then it really gets tricky when you're trying to find new people and what's going to be your keyword strategy, what's going to be your targeting and retargeting strategy.
And I would actually argue to say that bidding on your brand name from the years that I worked in search is a waste of money after a while.
That's so 70s. No, I'm just kidding.
It's just if people have gotten that far that they're looking for your brand to buy the product, they're going to click on an organic link or go to your website anyway. But yes, you want to be there. Or
worse, you're going to pay for them to click on.
You're paying for them to click on you want to be there in
case a competitor comes up and buys it. Right, with the competitors. But a good SEO program, a very basic SEO program is going to list you in above the fold results for your brand name. So it's almost a term that you shouldn't be paying for.
We split tested that. So we use site links obviously for search. So, with search, you're able to use different site links. You're able to remarket to these users. So there is, I feel like there is value on the brand search just because you're able to use so many different tactics to market to these people through Google. But, I totally get why some people don't want to use brand search, but still, if you're not going to market there, someone else will.
And above the fold on the search result page has gotten cluttered, so you get local ads, you get like Wikipedia stuff opening. You could have your brand showing up below. I would still do it because it is so cheap, because you probably are going to spend 10 cents or under a click. But I totally get the point that hey, they're going to probably find you anyways.
One interesting thing we do on Facebook is that when you start spending a lot of budget on Facebook, you start seeing that your brand searches go up month over month over month. So I think a lot of advertisers want to understand what is the real impact of a Facebook ad. So what you could do is you could actually look at the amount of brand searches, how they correlate to your ad spend on Facebook. And we've seen when you go up over $100,000 a month, your brand searches go up immensely month over month over month.
And then there's, of course, when you want to scale it out beyond Facebook and beyond just search, it's like you want to go EPUBs or something. You want to get your ad on Huffington Post or New York Times or Wired magazine, and that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, well, that brings up kind of programmatic, right? You may want to do a direct buy with a publisher, but are you guys working in programmatic? And
we're a Noble Digital's a programmatic agency. I like to be platform agnostic. I pretty much literally have a reach of billions with a B because of that. So that's not a problem. But I definitely like to start with the lean startup way and really just define the audience, find them, prove that that our theory is correct, especially if it's a startup and they're learning about their customers. That's really important. If you don't have 20 years or 10 years of data to go through, then you definitely want to start there and then scale it up,
I want to bring our audience into the conversation here. What have I not asked that you have, Bailey?
I was curious, when you're running a direct response campaign, you have that conversion to have a goal, that is the goal. So when they convert, you have more data on them, so you kind of know, was I hitting the right audience or the right kind of people? But when you're running a brand awareness campaign, you might not have that conversion data. So how do you know whether those impressions that you have are the right people?
Yeah, I can answer that. As I said earlier, I think like when you're running a brand awareness campaign, what you want people to start doing brand searches on Google. So the way to measure that is you could actually look at the month-over-month difference in brand searches from your ads on Facebook, but you could also look at the actual engagements with the ad units. So on Facebook, you can read the comments, the shares. I mean, if you're hitting the right audience with the right message, you're also going to get conversions coming from that brand awareness campaign. So you actually look at that brand awareness campaign also as a direct response campaign, because even though you're running just say, I want brand awareness, you're still going to get conversions from it.
And you're also going to have different metrics typically. So just from my position now, working with YouTube so much, people that are doing brand awareness campaigns are not necessarily looking at how many people went to my site or how many people bought something. They're looking at how engaged the people were. How did they watch my full video? What was the rate of people that skipped it or left it versus the ones who watched it? Did they remember my brand? There's a lot of measurement tools out there, from free studies that Google will actually offer if you're spending enough in the video platform, which Facebook also does similar things, to third parties like Millward Brown that will say they'll either do survey pops or something to measure your metric of choice. So that could be competitive recall. Do they remember your brand as something they would buy before a competitor? Ad recall, brand lift or brand preference, just things, do you remember seeing this ad? Do you know about this? If you saw these 4 competitors, who would you prefer? And those things being answered for those questions are really the goals of the brand awareness campaign versus a conversion. They're not looking at the conversions, nor I want to say nor should they, unless it ties into a full mix with something like retargeting or search.
I was going to add also that, so both of what you guys said was exactly right. And what we've moved past anybody who comes to us to run a video campaign on YouTube to buy impressions. That buying on a CPM, I think as a way of buying media is going to go to the wayside, because that's not really telling you anything. You're just getting eyeballs. That's the old way of buying media. So what we move down to now is one of the key metrics we look at are earned media. So it's follow-on views. So if we show them that first TrueView ad unit, we want to see that they went to the channel and watched additional videos on the channel, or subscriptions if they subscribe to it, if they click, comment, engage in any way. We find those to be better measurements to know that you're reaching the right audience. So yeah, and that's what I would say along the lines of, and then before even talking about brand studies, that's what we do. If we had a brand study, that also helps bolster the case on whether you're reaching the right audience and helps you optimize as an ad ops person.
And one other thing I want to add is that you can run your brand video as it is, but you can use ad tech to do the direct response now. You don't need someone shouting sign up now. You have that little overlay that pops up and they can make that decision, take that action or not. So you could have maybe a mid-roll action that's very lead magnet-esque, very light, and then the end could be a little bit stronger or aggressive if you want, but that's another way to play it.
We have another question. You, sir.
Yeah, we've got almost 50% of all ad impressions behind the wall gardens now, and a lot of people have a lot of great tactics for targeting custom audiences. Open web only represents about 50% of the impressions. How do you guys manage frequency across all these different platforms, a lot of which don't want to share information or plug into
So the question is about walled gardens versus the open web and how to manage frequency of impressions and audience across those. Any insights on that, guys?
I mean, that's why I do programmatic, because if you're on Facebook, people are not on Facebook all the time, every day, every hour. Some people are, but most are not. And so, if you get them on a Saturday, they might not come back till next Saturday. That's why you have to get that pixel, and you have to work with that, and then retarget them somewhere else online, for example. So, that becomes very important, that you have multiple strategies all at play, intertwined and integrated with each other.
I think it's all based on what your objective is from the campaign. So if your objective is conversions or your objective is views, you're going to optimize the frequency of the ads based around what your goal is of the campaign. Reach, yeah. So
another question?
Yeah, so a lot of, we actually build e-commerce sites for clients, and a lot of these clients are just they're not smart enough to read the analytics. They really just are not, they don't have time. There's one guy running everything for these analytics. So instead of sourcing it for a certain amount of money a month, what are the key metrics you go listen? You're starting, you're spend $10,000, $15,000 a month in PPC. What is you have to look at, and instead of being overwhelmed by the 5 pages on your Google
So I'll restate the question for the camera, which is that if you're a smaller e-commerce advertiser doing it all, what are the most important metrics to look at as you grow your business?
For e-commerce, that's kind of our bread and butter. I've launched a number of e-commerce sites myself, as well as for bigger companies. Number one, I'm always looking at conversion rates on the site. So, I'm trying to get over 4%. If I'm over 4%, I know that, my profitability is going to be pretty decent. Also AOV, I don't know how many SKUs the e-commerce sites you work with have, but, always doing different stuff to increase the AOVs of the companies that you're working with, whether that's, upselling different stuff in the shopping cart, whether it's, just figuring out how to continuously increase AOVs from average order value. Sorry about that. And then number three is just looking at the shopping cart conversion rates. So, one thing I learned is that, if you have a very slow load time on your shopping cart, that could be a big detraction of conversion rates. So I usually start by just looking at once you have enough data in there, just seeing the conversion rates of the shopping cart. We're trying to be over 30% for conversion rates for the shopping cart as a benchmark. So what I'll try and do is I'll look at the load times of the shopping cart. I'll try and figure out why the conversion rate is lower on the shopping cart versus other places, and then I'll start optimizing the cart from there. Maybe the mobile experience isn't very good, maybe it's not loading properly, maybe the pixels aren't loaded. Could be 10 or 11 different reasons.
So for me, I try, on our end, there might be 20, different things we're tracking. That's overwhelming for any client. So I really try to keep it down to 3, maybe 2 metrics that they need to worry about. There's 3 ways to grow a business, right? You get more customers, or you get to do more transactions per touch point, or you get them to buy more often. That's it. So I try to design 3 KPIs on those 3 areas, and that's it's going to be specific to every company. So I'd have to sit down and do a strategy to really know what I wouldn't say this is the. I mean, there's best practices, but I like to do custom work, and I really like to understand someone's business. And I think that when we have all the people in the room, I do strategy. Like you'll have the CEO and you'll have the salesperson, and they'll think they're saying the same thing. In the room, they'll realize like, oh my God, for a year they've been working together. They were on a completely different page and didn't realize until I was on a whiteboard asking the right questions. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, if there was one metric to look at in an AdWords account for a direct response, I'd look at cost per conversion. But you also have to know, how much you're willing to spend to get a new sale. Yeah, that'd be the one.
Yeah, it's a new customer.
Tony? Sorry.
Go ahead.
That's fine.
I was going to ask about retail and brick and mortar. It's a hot topic now. How does DR play a role in that? You can measure, I spend this much on Facebook or AdWords and I got this many conversions. But you're hoping that, I also drove some foot traffic into there, but how do you prove that? And there's so many vendors out there, just talking about that. If you don't have the budget to do, a Nielsen or a brand study, if you're just a startup, how could you prove that attribution?
How do you prove attribution from online to retail?
What is it? Your store, or what is it? What industry are we talking about?
Retail, brick and mortar.
Yeah.
Just say I'm at an agency and I'm running ads for Nike, and I saw this many conversions from Nike, but I'd hope that, or maybe not Nike, maybe a small local business. How would you do that attribution without, the budget for a brand study or research study or something, using the tactics available on these ad platforms? So
I started to keep chiming on Facebook. I just live in the Facebook world now
Facebook.
these days. People, it's like a big shopping mall. So, for Facebook, they just came out with this new technology called Facebook Offline Conversion Tracking. So they're actually tied into all the CRM systems or the order management systems for all these brick and mortar shops, so that you could actually integrate Facebook, with offline brick and mortar, and they'll actually track all the people coming into your store and attribute that all the way back up to the ad that people saw before they came in and purchased.
There's also some when you think about it, it's called omni-channel, I guess is the buzzword around that right now. There's also some players out there that are looking at it backwards. So how do we get more people who are coming into our stores to make more purchases online? Because it's actually been found that the people that shop in real stores are very unique to the people who shop online. It's not the same people going in the stores that are actually buying on the same store's website. So stores that have brick and mortar presences have started kind of looking at that problem backwards and figuring out ways, whether it's through like RFIDs in the store that you can like make a wish list as you're in the store and like go through or use their app or something that connects to your email that drives you to the website to actually make the purchase. You see it a lot with stores like Crate and Barrel with their furniture, something that's a high ticket value item. They're actually looking at that problem the other way of getting people who weren't shopping online to go from the store to online, because they tend to have a higher AOV, more items in cart, things like that when they shop online and they actually get to the website than they would have done in the store.
Good answer. One more question, a couple questions. We have 2 more minutes. I'll take both of you. Go ahead.
I just wonder if there are any tactical differences or tips that you have when you're going from like desktop devices and platforms to mobile.
We haven't talked a lot about mobile today, so differences in these tactics, desktop to mobile, guys?
Well, I think back to, it kind of got mentioned earlier that, I think when you're talking about captions on Facebook videos. So that's a really important distinction, because you have to make your ad unit and creative needs to be specific to where you're targeting, and that includes device targeting. So Google's done a lot of research. We've done testing around what types of video units, duration, style, the forms of editing work better on mobile. And so, I mean, I guess at a really high level, so with video on mobile, the shorter stuff is working better. So the 5-second bumper has been performing better. And also like things that are 30 seconds or under. We don't want to run really long form video ads on mobile. But I think it starts there, making sure you have the right ad unit for the right platform. But in terms of like your ad ops, like your actual ad buy strategy, usually comes down to the numbers again. So you're going to segment by, your desktop, tablet, mobile, and see how the performance looks and bid accordingly. Yeah.
And I think I find that most of the time, it depends on the product or service or what you're promoting, but video, mobile gets a lot of engagement and response, but it doesn't always get the transaction because people are kind of browsing and then, but there's certain items where you need them to sit down at a desk and actually look at it and read it and think about it. And they're in a different state of mind when they're at your desk versus laying in bed or wherever on the go, So even though people go crazy about mobile and the engagement and all that stuff, yeah, the engagement's there, but is the attention really there? Not always, it just depends.
Last question of the day, sir. You got it. You got the last word.
So all the experts here have incredible knowledge. They all have customers. Not one mentioned their customers, probably because they're protecting their business. And I think the goal of this was PPC versus retargeting. When I think of PPC, I think now. Like if I put in fire extinguisher or Friday flight to Vegas, let's all go, right? I'm paying. Like it's instant, right? It's an instant buy. You know what they want. But retargeting is where you're trying to convince them to buy something, right? So each one of y'all has like hundreds or tens of customers, VR, buying different things. From a retargeting standpoint, what performs the best?
That's a great full circle back to PPC versus retargeting. PPC being instantaneous, click, convert, retargeting a little bit more longer term. What do you guys think?
Was he here at the beginning when we were all like, we don't really understand the topic, but...
Were you here in the beginning?
we pulled it through, we made it. So any thoughts on that?
What works best in retargeting?
I just think we all agree it's not a black and white thing. We think it's...
PPC is easy, if I put in flight to Vegas, I get United versus Virgin trying to outbid me, right? Like, fire extinguisher, I don't need it now. But with retargeting, you're like, dude, you need this bike, I don't ride a bike, but you need this.
But you went to that site and you've been there already, so.
It's easy. You know who's not performing your ad. It's really easy. Retargeting's not. With all the customers that each one of them has, each one of them probably have the customer. They're like, dude, vitamins, retargeting, boom. Selling a bike, don't retarget. You're not even getting home.
Retail and high ticket items. If you're asking categories.
Yeah, categories is what I wanted to know.
Retail and high consideration, high ticket items. So great example for retargeting, like automotive. They want to drive people to go get test drives. You can retarget somebody like 15 times if they've been looking at a car. They're considering that purchase for months, right? Where, I don't know, travel's
We can
probably
get
also a good category.
This guy in the back has some help for us. Yeah.
Something, no, like, but they're trying to drive to the showroom. So if they know a lot about you because you've interacted with
Go
the
ahead.
site multiple times.
So I think at the end, we're just trying to define a funnel and an experience for maintenance. Right? You're playing at different tactics, but at the end, it is about to play the different parts of the funnel. Now, to say one versus the other, there's no funnel. So you're doing it by,
There's no verses. I don't think Tony admitted he didn't notice the verses was even the title. He's like, what? So I think we all agreed before we started that it's not really a versus thing. It's integration is the
It
key
is.
word here. Integration.
We have to. Yeah.
playing on the top of the funnel. So it's
We're going to have to leave it there. I hope you guys will continue this great
talk.
conversation offline. Thanks, guys. You were great.